Hi everyone, welcome back to Malaysia Kind of Asia. I decided to revive my Learn Malay series. I started this YouTube channel over a year ago. The channel's first videos were actually Malay lessons. I did that with a friend who was the person behind the camera and had also come up with a syllabus. So there are a few shocking revelations in this video, so stay tuned. So the first shocking revelation is between me and my friend Dice, who came up with the syllabus for me, none of us is a native speaker of Malay. I felt that I could also kind of deliver the language better because a person who learns a language as a second language might actually be a better speaker in that language because we had, actually formally learned the grammar rules and things like that. And of course, not anyone who speaks a language as a second language would be able to be very proficient in it, but I felt that I had also done quite a bit of schooling in Malay. I grew up in Malaysia, so that means in school, we will have to learn Malay at least as a language, as well as using Malay as a medium of instruction. And the things that I teach, I guess, might not be perfect. So some people have given me feedback. That was the difference between Selamat Tengah Hari and Selamat Petang. So I did not cover Selamat Tengah Hari in my video because actually when Dice and I came up with the syllabus, he came up with like a syllabus that's applicable to learning any language in the world, basically. He wrote things in English, right? So Dice is Japanese, but speak a pretty wide range of languages from, like Indonesian to Swedish, Norwegian, German. But of course, in different cultures and different languages, they actually do not use exactly the same words. Some cultures do not probably have something that says, "How are you?" Turned out in Malay, there are these two greetings that you can use for greeting someone, something like good afternoon, and depending on the time of the day, you would use a different one. People have pointed out to me in my video that I missed out Selamat Tengah Hari, or they say that good afternoon instead of Selamat Petang, which I had taught in my video should be Selamat Tengah Hari. But actually, good afternoon is not necessarily Selamat Tengah Hari. So Tengah Hari is actually noon. So Selamat Tengah Hari is something that you would use if you are greeting someone at noon. Well, noon, we all understand it as 12 p.m. In this context, you can use it from 12 to 2 or something like during a lunch break, for example. But you probably don't use it past 2, 3, or like into 4 or 5 o'clock. So in those cases, then you would probably use Selamat Petang. If you have heard my confession or revelation that I am not a native speaker of Malay, and you decide to still stay with me for the rest of these Malay lesson videos, the other shocking revelation is that most of the time people do not speak using the words that I've covered in my Malay lesson videos. I taught you the vocabulary, I taught you the phrases, how you carry out simple conversations in Malay. But in real life in Malaysia, people do not speak like how I speak in my videos. Of course, my pronunciation was a little different, but actually people do not speak like that in Malaysia. So that's really funny because if you had come to Malaysia and if you had watched my videos, you probably will realize that none of the words that people use in real life match any of these words that I've taught. In Malaysia, people use very casual or informal Malay. What I've taught is very formal. These are words that you would use when you are writing an exam, writing a formal letter, or in court. When it comes to spoken Malay, people have come to be so used to speaking very fast and they probably try to find shortcuts of saying a word. The difference usually is just a word would probably have been truncated or shortened. Usually grammar rules are not adhered to, so people do not really conjugate the verbs. When we talk about conjugation in Malay, it's very simple. It's even less conjugation than in English, which some people do not even realize that have conjugation rules. And then some of the conjugation rules are also pretty ambiguous and they are not very strict. People do misuse a lot of words. I guess the advantage of learning a language as a second speaker is that you pay very close attention to the grammar rules. Because I took extra lessons and everything, I had these really good teachers who would point out grammar mistakes to us. When you are just learning a language based on listening to how other people speak it or like just through conversations, so these mistakes are really aggravated, right? And they are perpetuated over space and time, and no one really cares, to be honest, because it's not a very strict language. I'm not saying this in a negative way. The lack of grammar rules actually makes it very easy for people to learn the language. Back to the issue of people not actually using these words that I teach. I would say essentially the words are the same, but it's just that the way that they are pronounced will not be the way that I've pronounced it. Or actually the way that they are spelt will be different. I guess before the advent of chat or email, the internet, people would already have been using these shortened versions of words, but they probably would not have written it down somewhere. Like, if they were to write it down, they probably would write the formal and the correct spelling. I'm going to do kind of a series covering these patterns. I will try to see if there are rules. I guess it's pretty random, and the rule is just to make these words shorter, right? If you really pay attention, I guess there is kind of a rule of thumb or like a pattern to with which people use to truncate these words. Obviously, it's not like a rule per se because it's pretty random, I think. So again, I would like to stress that I am not a native speaker nor a Malay linguist. So everything that I'm going to say is really purely based on my own observation and my experience. Some of these short forms of these more proper or formal words are actually in the dictionary. There is, I guess, a distinction between a formal and an informal word, but the third class of words, I guess I will call them casual words or even slang. When I say casual and slangs, these are words that people use when they talk to each other on a day-to-day basis, like on the street, which happens probably 80% of the time. I'm sure there is a pattern to it. I don't know if it's kind of codified. I have also figured out my own way of how it works. I remember that we had a cafeteria, and this is really funny. Nasi campur is like a dish where they would put a scoop of rice on the plate, and then you get to choose whichever dish you want. I would go up to the guy and say, "Sedikit sahaja." Sedikit sahaja means just a little bit. Sedikit is little. Sahaja is only. The guy would repeat what I said in like a mocking way. Initially, I really did not know why would sedikit sahaja be funny. Each of these two words has its shorter form. So sedikit can be shortened to sikit. Sikit is also in the dictionary. In the dictionary, I think there is also this word saja, but even more extreme, from a 3-syllable word sahaja is shortened to saja, 2-syllable. Sahaja is even shortened to ja. It's written J-E, derived from the last syllable of sahaja, J-A. In Malay, street Malay, colloquial Malay sense, people do not enunciate the words very strictly. So A is definitely pronounced as A. But in colloquial Malay, when the words end with an A, they are mostly pronounced as instead of sahaja, people would say saja. People do not even say saja, they say ja. So I guess this would give you kind of an introduction into what the differences are. And of course, there are more differences than that. So I have also just covered the difference in the pronunciation, right? Between formal/proper Malay and informal/colloquial/casual Malay. The differences could be in, of course, word itself, but most of the time, the informal or the colloquial word is derived from the formal word, and the difference is not a lot. It's just, dropping a few syllables. The other difference would be in the pronunciation. Another difference would be completely different words. So these are the areas I will try to cover in future tutorials, but I think this is a very interesting phenomenon to me. As much as I have come to identify these differences on my own, I would also like to be able to kind of make sense of the differences and try to see if there's like a pattern, a common theme, I guess, to it. But these are, just things that you observe, and you don't know if your observations or the conclusions or the interpretations that you draw from your observations or your experience are correct. Definitely feel free to leave a comment if you have anything to say about the things that I've just said. And I'm really looking forward to sharing experiences with other learners of Malay, and of course people who are native speakers of Malay. So thank you for watching. I definitely look forward to being back